Today is Wednesday, January 18th, 2017. And today I'm going to talk about a really hot story, super hot, all over social media, all over the internets. It's a crazy story, but it's nothing to be unexpected from the black community, unfortunately. Now, I know I'm going to get a lot of, or you a coon, you a Uncle Tom comments from the low IQ section of the black community, but I'm not too worried about that. I'm going to just go ahead and jump straight into the story. This is about Marc Lamont Hill. Now, if you don't know who Marc Lamont Hill is, he is a regular commentator on a lot of these different shows. I think he's been on Fox. He's on CNN a lot. I'm not quite sure if he's a paid commentator on CNN, but he's on there a lot. And he is like a SJW, so to speak, you know, kind of like an undercover SJW. I think he's also like a PhD or a PhD student. I'm not quite sure about that, but I'm sure he teaches a class somewhere. I think in Philadelphia, maybe Temple. I'll put his bio in the box below just so we can kind of be on the same page as to who he is. But moving right along from his introduction, he got on CNN and called the people that met with Trump that were black. He called them mediocre Negroes. You know, just it's kind of a derogatory thing, but not really. But the way he said it was derogatory. In the context in which he said it, it was like trying to say that they were just nobodies, you know, just irrelevant people. Black folks that were just there, just like real tokens for Donald Trump. They had no importance to anybody in the black community, and they were just used as props. That's what he was getting at. And it's really kind of crazy because you want to call people like Bob Johnson, the former CEO of BET, owner of the Charlotte Bobcats, you want to call him a mediocre Negro? Well, if Bob Johnson is mediocre, then what are you, Mr. Marc Lamont Hill? You're really a nobody. But before I get into my teardown on the whole video, before I get into all of that, into my commentary, what I want to do right now is play it for you. And you can kind of see his tone, the way he was talking. You may recognize him from being on other shows, in case you don't know his name. And then after you see that and kind of digest it, we'll come back and I'll give you my final thoughts. So without further ado, go ahead and roll it.
About Steve Harvey. And I'm going to get Mark and then I'll get the others in. So, Mark, Steve Harvey went to Trump Tower and is taking a lot of backlash for meeting with the president-elect. What do you make of this controversy?
You know, I love Steve Harvey and I have respect for Steve Harvey, and I think his intentions were accurate, or appropriate, rather. But my disagreement is the way in which he's being used by folk like Donald Trump. Again, his intention is just to have a seat at the table. But when you're at the table, you should have experts at the table. You should have people who can challenge the president at the table. I don't care if Steve's there, but if I'm Steve Harvey, I'm bringing Michelle Alexander. I'm bringing Cornel West. I'm bringing Amani Perry. I'm bringing Eddie Glaude. I'm bringing Michael Eric Dyson. I'm bringing some folk with me who can challenge the president and inform the conversation. Otherwise, you're just being
Bruce,
trumpeted
why
up
are
there.
you saying, oh my God?
Let me real quick, because they keep bringing up comedians and actors and athletes to represent black interests is demeaning, it's disrespectful, and it's condescending. Bring some people up there with some expertise, Donald Trump. Don't just bring up people to entertain.
So you were at the meeting. You heard and saw everything.
I don't understand how anything I said would prompt that question.
Listen,
unless Steve Harvey turned into a policy analyst in the behind-the-scenes meeting, then it doesn't matter what I was there. I'm saying my concern was the people he's trumpeting up and putting in front of the cameras.
Mark, you weren't even there. You don't even know what happened. Okay.
Okay. Yes, I do. Are you disagreeing that he brought down? Are you disagreeing?
You weren't in the room, sir. You weren't there.
How does that negate my point that he brought Steve Harvey and then put him in front of the cameras?
Let me tell you.
That's my critique.
Here's the deal. You don't know what happened. First of all, Pastor Darrell Scott, Michael Cohen, they are in a process of bringing all types of people from all over the country, from all different backgrounds, like we have. Remember the Diversity Coalition, where we reach out to all different types of people?
It was a bunch of mediocre Negroes being dragged in front of TV as a photo op for Donald Trump's exploitative campaign against black people, and you are a prime example of that, sir.
How are you going to... So now you want to name call, Mark.
Symone, you better jump in if you want to talk.
Now you want to name call.
Now
you want to name call. And then you want to demarginalize...
Let me back Mark up here. Let me back Mark up here.
Symone has not spoken.
Let me back Mark up here because Mark's making an important point.
Mark is not making an important point. Mark is just talking.
Black people are diverse, okay? And for Donald Trump to only engage actors and comedians and, you know, reality type folks, he is not engaging with the diversity of black people in America. So again, I would like to see Donald Trump bring some policy analysts, some real people who have some meat on the bones for the issues to the table.
Danged if you do,
you
danged
got 10
if you
seconds,
don't.
Bruce.
So
They need to be far less liberal.
He ain't done.
What do you mean danged if you danged if you don't? He ain't done. That is the point.
You can actually bring qualified
Bruce
people.
is an expert, and he brought Bruce in.
No, it's not.
All right.
You can bring in
What's your expertise,
conservative
Bruce?
icons. They don't have to be leftist.
All right, so you're able to see what's going on there. You saw it, you heard it, you digested it. Now, I gotta just kind of go in on it. Now, this guy, I gotta laugh here because, I don't want to be too angry or too negative in this video, but you already know pretty much where I'm going. If you've seen my videos before, you know where I'm going with this. People like Marc Lamont Hill give people like me a hard time in society because when you see people like that on TV all the time and they speak for the black community, they speak for so-called black interests, it makes those of us that are black that may kind of look similar to him, we're all kind of painted with a broad brush in many cases. And it's not anything like it's racist. It's just kind of like a natural thing to do. When you keep saying that same thing over and over and over again, you start to develop prejudice, but it's not racist. You understand? It's like if you saw 100 people that look the exact same way or look similar or come from a similar environment, do the exact same thing back to back to back to back, you would expect for the person that comes 101 to do the exact same thing or something similar. You would expect it, right? So now I got to deal with people like that making me look bad and all the criminals and everything else that guys like that will protect. And mediocre, like I said before, what makes them like if you got Bob Johnson, the former CEO of BET, owner of the Charlotte Bobcats, a media mogul, really, if you got him meeting with Donald Trump, how can you say that these Negroes, as you call them, are mediocre? How can you say Jim Brown, a football legend and a civil rights legend, for real? He's the real civil rights icon, not like that fake civil rights icon in John Lewis. All he did was just walk with King. That's it. He didn't do anything else. People say, oh, he's an icon, he's a legend for doing what? Jim Brown's actually been out there in the mud. Jim Brown's actually out there helping people to develop business, to procure money. He was actually out there doing real work with the gangs and everything else. Himself on the ground. People that's out there in California, all across the nation, the Midwest, the East Coast, they know how Jim Brown is. I know people that know him, OGs on Vernon West. Like, they know how Jim Brown get down. So to say that Jim Brown, out of all people in the world, Bob Johnson, out of all people in the world, is a mediocre Negro is crazy. And then guys like Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis is somebody that has come from a dark place and has survived and created a life for himself that is further away from that which he came. So it doesn't make any sense why Marc Lamont Hill would call him a mediocre Negro, because Marc Lamont Hill would be the first guy on TV talking about hands up, don't shoot, Black Lives Matter. Marc Lamont Hill would be the guy out there that's trying to champion the criminals out there in the street doing wrong, talking about how, oh, they didn't do nothing, they deserve a second chance, don't look at them like that. But then a guy like Ray Lewis has really come from that and improved himself and become somebody. Or you want to call him mediocre Negro now because you don't agree with what he says, right? You want to call Kanye mediocre Negro. I mean, these people, if they're mediocre, then what are you? And anybody that agrees with them, what are you? I don't think it's right to be trying to, put a caste system in the black community, because we're all kind of in a bad shape. People like Jim Brown, etc., represent a high level that we can aspire to be. And then this guy talking about Marc Lamont Hill, that is, he talks about, oh, we should have guys like Michael Eric Dyson. Like, who is Michael Eric Dyson really? Michael Eric Dyson is an SJW that goes on TV and is basically like a rapper. He speaks very well and he likes to hear himself talk. So he'll kind of like get into talking, and his cadence turns into a rap.
A smooth criminal on beat breaks. Never put me in your box if your ish eats tapes. You see what I'm saying? I go from Jigga to Escobar. Why? Because I want to bring that intensity of intelligence and edifying engagement with the social issues that prevail within hip-hop, poverty, global awareness of struggles against oppression, to deal with how you go from the ghetto to the suburbs, so to speak, and is there some tension? Do you lose your credibility? To think about misogyny and sexism and homophobia and patriarchy, all within the context of the lyrics. I mean, now walk it out. Now walk it out. Can we do that as well? Can we think it out? Can we deal with it intellectually and engage it cerebrally, but also at the same time deal with the aesthetic dimensions of the articulation?
It's like, yo, are you on here talking about bills on the Capitol Hill, or are you trying to like audition to go and get a record deal? You sound like a rapper right now, but I digress. These books and stuff that he writes are just cancer. They're toxic. They don't do anything to help the black community. All they do is just appeal to a certain segment of the population in America and across the world that has racial guilt on the inside. In the book, I saw a book, I think Jay-Z posted the book, and he had Beyonce in there. It's like, come on, man. Like, this is just silly virtue signaling stuff that you just be able to create a little niche in society for that. Nobody cares about that except for the people that are out there that really think that they are somehow to blame for the problems with the black community. With the Negro, as Marc Lamont Hill loves to say, right? You want to blame the problems of black America, of the Negro, on whites. And then you want to kind of get into the industry of being able to capitalize on that. And you think those are the people that are suitable to meet with Donald Trump. It's really just like trying to promote yourself and your friends over other people. It don't even got to be like that. You can just request that they are brought up there. Why do you got to put others down to just try and promote yourself and your friends, right? And the truth is, I wouldn't even want them to go up there because they won't have anything of tangible value to offer to Donald Trump. See, people that he's brought out there before have been able to produce something for themselves, to bring themselves out of the mud, to bring themselves from these areas that need to be fixed and to become something. A guy like Marc Lamont Hill, I mean, who is he really? Where is he from? A guy like Michael Eric Dyson, who is really, where is he from? They come from middle class environments, and that's fine. I'm not trying to say anything bad about people that come from middle class areas, but I can relate more to a Kanye, more to a Ray Lewis, more to these people that come from lower income situations and understand those of us that do, because the truth is the majority of us in the black community come from those kind of environments. So they can relate more to me. And I can identify more with them more than Michael Eric Dyson, who is just really not even all the way black for real and is more like a SJW rapper more than somebody that can actually help with the black community. And to Marc Lamont Hill and all these sycophants of him, of the liberal left, of the white liberal left, of the black liberal left, the Congressional Black Caucus, NAACP, etc. Just a bunch of phonies. They don't do anything to help. Those of us that are really out here in the mud, I salute you. All the small black businesses that do not get any help from the NAACP, the NABJ, the Congressional Black Caucus, the Black Chamber of Commerce, or whatever it is. We don't get any help from them. We don't hear from them. We kind of operate amongst ourselves, and we deal with each other that are out here in the street doing the same thing. We support ourselves and our families and everything else. The people that are out there in these alphabet letter organizations, they represent themselves. Marc Lamont Hill, he represents himself. But it's very dangerous when they're given platforms to be able to pontificate and speak to people that are in the black community and outside of the black community that may believe what he says and take it to heart and then go out there and do something against it. That's why I make videos like this, to be a counter narrative. And I'm speaking with a cogent and coherent mind. I don't do any kind of drugs or anything like that. I'm sober as sober could be. With no counter narrative, there's no ability to be able to come to a real resolution in the black community. All it's going to be is chaos and confusion from here on out. Those of us that are able to rise above that, that want to do better, that are doing better, that want to think differently and think for ourselves, be independent, whether you still liberal or conservative or whatever it is, think for yourself, be an independent thinker. Don't just go with the group think. Don't just call somebody a crooner, Uncle Tom, or a sellout without thinking about what you're saying first, without thinking about what that person is saying first, without doing some reading and some research, without kind of getting outside of your bubble and your comfort zone. Think differently, educate yourself. It's 2017. You are allowed to read. The white liberal was the one that told you you can't read. Don't go out there and read those books. You may get educated and understand what's going on in the world and in society and how to free yourself. That's how I freed myself, because I was like you. If you want to call me a crooner or Uncle Tom, I was just like you at one point in my life. But then I realized, you know what? I know how to read. I can read books. Why can't I just read and figure out what's going on for myself? Why must I have people, talking heads on TV, white liberals, etc., that are in my school system tell me how to think? I'm an adult. I'm a man. I think for myself. That's how everybody should be, regardless of what color you are, your gender or whatever. If you whatever, if you have no gender, if you're gender fluid, it don't matter. You still got a brain in your head and it's functional. Think for yourself. So what do you think? Do you think that Marc Lamont Hill was correct in what he said about those that saw Trump, the black folks that went to go see Trump, that they're just mediocre Negroes and they shouldn't have done it, was a bad thing or whatever? Is that your assertion? If that's your assertion, please explain to me why in the comments below. I would love to see a well thought out and detailed explanation rather than a simple name call. Or do you think I'm correct with my assertion about how people like Marc Lamont Hill and other white liberals, black liberals, etc., try to keep a certain section of the black community right where they are? They don't want to allow them to be able to read, research, and think differently. They just want to keep them right there. It's kind of like a new Jim Crow. You know, the Jim Crow laws were designed to keep black folks within a certain kind of parameter to control them so they can function the best way in society and live amongst whites. And it's kind of the same thing going on with the white liberal. And it's a little bit different now because they're using them as a weapon. And it's really a shame. And I hope that it comes to an end pretty soon. But like I said, more of us going to keep coming out. More of us on the right going to keep coming out. Even if we're not on the right, we're independent thinkers. And I think that the more of us that kind of spring up all across the country is going to be kind of a surrounding drown. If you're a firefighter, you know what I'm talking about. You just kind of surround the building and keep spraying water on it until the flames dissipate. And the flames represent those in the black community that are not able to think for themselves, that low IQ and stuck in the low IQ and don't want to do anything better. And those of us that are on the right, those of us that kind of are independent thinkers, we're going to surround them and drown them out with our water. And the water is our good thoughts, imagination, and freedom that we represent. So whatever your comments are, let me know in the comments below. That's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.